What is up, guys? It's Matt. I am a compulsive gambler in recovery, and I like to think of myself as your mind and movement mentor here to help you. So one of the main reasons I started this channel was I wanted to try and help people overcome their struggles and maybe shorten their recovery process a little bit and pay forward some of the things that I've learned that really kind of helped me. So one thing that was really relevant in my journey for recovery was that a couple of years ago I was diagnosed with ADHD. Sure, everyone does, but for those who don't, that stands for Attention Deficit Hyperactive Disorder, and it's a mental health condition that around about 3 to 5% of adults suffer with. So this was kind of big for me because it was a gift and a curse finding this out. It was a gift in a way that it helped me understand a lot of my behaviour with the addiction from when I was young in school leading up to very recently. But at the same time, it kind of became a little bit of a rationale for some of my behaviour, and almost like, I don't want to say it gave me permission, but it almost for a brief period I had to wrestle with my mind not making excuses for my behaviour. Now, if you know anything about the addicted mind, it absolutely loves to rationalise, and the addiction speaks to you in your own voice, so you never need any help in kind of making that kind of behaviour acceptable. So this was something that I kind of struggled with for a while, because some of the traits of ADHD are lack of organisation, lack of focus, trouble kind of maintaining attention span day to day. It's often described as having kind of multiple tabs open in your brain at any one time, which can kind of be a strain on your mental bandwidth and not lead you to starting tasks and not finishing them. But a big one also is kind of the impulsivity. And not all ADHDers are addicts and vice versa, but the more I find out about it, the more I do find that the two can come together really kind of like a perfect storm. And ADHD is complex, but one way I've kind of come to understand it is, for whatever reason, the brain doesn't like to kind of be at peace. So it would almost rather you create a chaotic situation for you than nothing. It's kind of neurochemical in a sense that something needs to kind of be going on. And this is, of course, challenging when you've got learned behaviour, which I very much had. In my case, it was gambling addiction, of addictive like patterns. So I kind of had to unpick the two in the way that they kind of work together, and almost kind of understand how they dovetailed into each other, but at the same time kind of sort of treat them separately. And I like to try and think about them separately now, even though there's a lot of things of the two that kind of cross over together. So the impulsivity, for example, is something that addicts very much struggle with. When they're in active addiction, it's almost like they don't need any further encouragement to keep continuing with the behaviour. But I would often find, like when I wasn't gambling, I would be binging on high sugar foods. I would often be maybe making impulsive shopping purchases and things like that. And it was almost like there was an itch that kind of needed to be scratched. But when I kind of understood that as the nature of kind of my brain and how it worked, and it wasn't so much that I was chasing whatever the external stimulus was, it was more that just I kind of had a brain that needed looking after, I suppose. There's that analogy in kind of mental health for thinking of almost like you're on a chariot and the brain is the horses, and you need to kind of whip your brain to attention. It was more kind of just it made it the mantra of kind of you are not your mind even more relevant for me. And I just needed to kind of take some steps to think about when those kind of behaviours were coming in and what I could do about them. So I've mentioned this in several other videos, but for me that's really kind of why I fell in love with like physical exercise, because that felt like it kind of ticked what I was looking for on a physical level in terms of kind of exhausting the body and output, but also kind of fulfilling that kind of brain chemistry in a healthy way, rather than going to do something like gambling, overeating, or something that was kind of really self-destructive. So, like I said before, the two can really mix together, and I'm sure some more research will probably come out on this, because I do kind of can speak from experience of someone who kind of had both. It does feel like it's a kind of a turbocharged version. And I remember at times when I was kind of in active gambling and I knew about my diagnosis, I almost kind of felt more helpless, because I kind of didn't know how I was going to kind of combat the addiction. And I felt like I was kind of just frustrated and lost and at my wit's end with that. And then there was kind of this additional layer on top of, well, even if I can find my way out, I've got ADHD, so it's always going to kind of be this way. And if you can relate to that, I would say to you that they totally can be separated. They can be dealt with independently. And it's not something that you kind of need to think you're going to be kind of bound by with negative consequences forever. There's certain things that you can do that will help with both aspects. There is a lot of good research on ADHD that's out there. One person that I would recommend is Doc Amen, who's wrote a couple of really good books, great to follow on all the social media channels. And he kind of really breaks down what's going on in the brain, talks about a few of the different types of ADHD, which is kind of interesting, and maybe some of the strategies for how some things work best for certain kinds and not for others. There are certain things like minimizing processed foods, getting out in nature, exercising, that kind of just seem to universally work, and that's why I'm so kind of passionate about these topics. But I just wanted to kind of highlight the two forces, if you will, of how they kind of can link together. If anyone's got any experience with ADHD and also kind of suffered some addictive like behaviour that they feel is kind of directly linked to being of that mind, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. If you get any value from this channel at all, please like and subscribe and support in any which way you can, and perhaps share this video with someone who it may be relevant for that could do with seeing it. But I will talk to you soon in the next video. Take care.